could save you as much as 50% off your premiums every year for the rest of your life. 800-257-1257. Toll free. Call Garden State Life Insurance for your free information today. 257-1257.
This is CNN.
Boris Yeltsin seeks to dispel the cloud of uncertainty hanging over the Soviet nuclear arsenal.
Delegates pull up a chair for the latest round of Middle East peace talks, but no Palestinians are seated at the table.
And a crackdown of a different kind in South Africa. The government rounds up white extremists. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Frank Sesno.
And I'm Donna Kelley. Hello. When Boris Yeltsin dropped out of sight yesterday, his mysterious disappearance raised questions about the stability of his leadership and the Russian nuclear arsenal. Now he apparently plans to clear up those concerns. Today, the Russian leader resurfaced on a Black Sea warship. Mr. Yeltsin's spokesman said while visiting the Black Sea Fleet, the Russian president met with the military commander of the new Commonwealth about the security of nuclear weapons. He's expected to use a taped address later to tell the Russian people about that meeting and to outline his new proposals on nuclear weapons. That address is set to air at 1:15 in the morning Eastern tonight, and CNN plans to bring it to you live. Now, an interesting side note to the nuclear question, the nuclear button of the former Soviet Union reportedly consists of 3 small black suitcases. Now, according to the newspaper, Komsomolskaya Pravda, one is always with Mr. Yeltsin, another with the Commonwealth's commander-in-chief, while the third is kept as a spare.
Now, one of the West's biggest fears as the Soviet Union teetered and fell was the fate of its vast nuclear arsenal. In recent days, U.S. officials have said the consolidation and destruction of some of that arsenal is ahead of schedule. But there are lingering concerns about the brains behind the operation, scientists and researchers who could sell their expertise to the highest bidder. The U.S. and other Western nations have talked about providing funds to encourage the scientists to stay put. But as CNN's Eileen O'Connor reports from Moscow, it is a daunting task.
These were Russia's best-kept secrets, literally. 10,000 nuclear weapons specialists, pampered and cared for, appreciated for their defense of the motherland. They no longer feel that appreciation. They, too, must now stand in line. Their salaries enough to buy a few pounds of sausage a month. Still, they are patriots, they say.
They appreciate the difficulties of the situation in this country, and they are prepared to put up with it. But then there is a limit to anyone's patience.
These doorways used to boast armed guards. Now they are opening up to the world. But the West fears they will become floodgates, releasing a wave of weapons technology and scientists looking for a market and a better life. Alexei Vertoporak has heard the talk of lucrative contracts in Libya. He is a prime candidate, young, smart, in charge of the Tokamak 15, which produces high-temperature plasma needed for nuclear fusion. But he thinks most here would rather cooperate with the United States or Germany or Japan. That's where the money and technology are. We're scientists, Alexei says. We want to expand our horizons, not just do the same things again and again, even if it means more money. But that means cooperation with the West, and the Cold War mentality is dying hard. Some officials say it may be the United States that unwittingly is forcing some scientists here to leave. Take this tassitron. The Russians have succeeded in selling one to New Mexico, but now they can't get visas to help out their colleagues. They proudly point out this device could aid in powering long space flights, if only they could explain it to their fellow scientists. It's the U.S. bureaucracy, they say, that could force scientists to look for work elsewhere.
If the U.S. spends a long time approaching this problem, we will end up in a very difficult situation.
Yevgeny Velikov is the director of the Kurchatov Atomic Institute. He thinks if the United States could help fund Soviet scientists until the industry here becomes commercial, it would be money well spent.
And I think it's quite reasonable after to diminish the nuclear threat, not spend $1 trillion, but spend a few hundred millions.
Despite breaking out of the twilight zone of secrecy, the orders are not flooding in. That is worrying people like Anatoly. He tests nuclear detectors. We could do some of the work the West needs done, he says. I know life is hard here, but I don't want to leave. Anatoly, like so many others, admits if it gets much worse, he may have no choice. Eileen O'Connor, CNN, Moscow.
The Reuters news agency reports the United States today informed NATO of its plans to cut long-range nuclear missiles in tandem with the former Soviet republics. President Bush is expected to outline the plan and to talk about further defense cuts in tonight's State of the Union speech. CNN's Wolf Blitzer reports on how the U.S. force of the future is shaping up.
The Pentagon's proposed budget cuts that will be announced this week will be less than meet the eye. That's because closing bases, terminating arms contracts, and cleaning up nuclear weapons plants are extremely expensive. Defense officials say the real savings will only come down the road. Still, with Russia dramatically cutting its military budget, Defense Secretary Dick Cheney says the U.S. can do the same, but prudently.
There's still going to be plenty of work for defense contractors. It's just going to be less than it's been now for the last several years.
Among those weapon systems expected to survive the new budget, the Strategic Defense Initiative, the so-called Star Wars program, the new F-22 jet fighter, the successor to the F-15, the huge C-17 transport plane, the advanced version of the F-A-18 fighter, the Army's new light helicopter, the Comanche, designed to replace aging scout and attack helicopters, and the Navy's new Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, which costs about $1 billion each. Among those weapon systems expected to be slashed and even killed, the B-2 stealth bomber, whose price tag already exceeds $850 million, the nuclear-powered Seawolf submarine, the proposed Minuteman strategic missile, the existing MX nuclear missile with multiple warheads, the nuclear warhead for the submarine-launched Trident II missile, and the Army's new generation tank, the M1A2, the successor to the M1A1.
Some of my friends and former colleagues on Capitol Hill are eager to rush out and make even deeper cuts, take the force down farther, take it down even more rapidly than we're already doing. I think that would be a very serious mistake.
But one defense analyst says Congress's initial inclination will be to push for more.
I expect the Department of Defense will seek about $10 billion worth of savings in 1993 and $50 or $60 billion over the next 5 years. Congress is likely to go double or nothing, try to go for $100 billion over the next 5 years.
Yet Adams warns that Congress may put the brakes on the Pentagon's proposed cuts when lawmakers realize that plants and bases in their districts are going to be affected. The new budget represents the Pentagon's wish list, and that, of course, will be subject to review by Congress. Defense officials anticipate significant changes before the issue is settled. Wolf Blitzer, CNN, the Pentagon.
After a periodic review, the UN Security Council has decided to leave sanctions against Iraq in place. The Associated Press reports the UN believes Iraq still has secret chemical and biological weapons plants. The AP says it was the team that was looking for those plants that was roughed up by a crowd of Iraqis yesterday in Baghdad.
Still to come on the International Hour, the Palestinian delegation today refused to attend the Middle East talks underway in Moscow, and that's threatening the delicately balanced peace process. In South Africa, suspects that may have caused riots last August were taken into custody today, but not for long. Those reports ahead on the International Hour.
That's life.
You guys around next week? Not me, I'm off to State College on Saturday. You're still going? That's great.
What about your dad's surgery?
Yeah, the bills and stuff. No problem. He had some extra insurance to help pick up the bills.
Aflac Supplemental Insurance helps close the gaps in your health insurance, like deductibles and co-payments. Aflac lets life go right on, and that's the peace of mind you want. Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
Mercury Sable continues to distinguish itself as a leader in automotive design. This year, we redesigned the exterior, the interior, the instrument panel, and equipped it with dual airbags, a feature not offered by any other manufacturer in this class. Other than that, we've pretty much left it alone. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
This dry skin itch, won't anything stop it fast? Lanacane will. Lanacane shuts off the itch like a switch, fast. Only Lanacane cream works on contact with the nerves that cause dry skin itch. Look, Vaseline Intensive Care can't. Jergens can't. These can't. And Lanacane Deep moisturizes too. Helps heal rough, dry skin. For dry skin itch, every itch.
Lanacane does shut off the itch like a switch, fast.
Kids, Delmonte's figured out how to make pasta in here in 3 minutes. But then they added vegetables. So much for progress.
New Del Monte Pasta Classics. So easy and delicious, some people are nervous.
Tomorrow night, New York Governor Mario Cuomo reacts to the President's State of the Union address and looks ahead to New Hampshire and the Democrats' chances for regaining the White House. Tomorrow night, Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
At least 40 people are reported killed in Azerbaijan today when a civilian helicopter was shot down by a rocket. The TASS news agency says the chopper was downed while flying over Stepanakert, that's the capital of the disputed Armenian enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. An Azerbaijani official says Armenian militants suspecting that the chopper carried weapons are responsible. The victims include women and children. Ruling military forces in the Republic of Georgia have seized control of the Black Sea port city of Poti. The city was one of the last major strongholds of ousted President Zviad Gamsakhurdia. Government troops met little resistance as armored vehicles rumbled through town. At least 6 people were reported killed, 20 more wounded in the clash. And the Interfax news agency reports a demonstration for Mr. Gamsakhurdia today in Sanaki, another stronghold in western Georgia. Sanaki was overtaken by military forces last week. Gamsakhurdia supporters came out when some troops withdrew.
The latest round of the Middle East peace talks is underway in Moscow, this time without some key Arab players. There's a boycott over the makeup of the Palestinian delegation. We get details now from CNN's Ralph Begleiter in Moscow.
Push finally came to shove in the Middle East peace process delicately engineered by the United States and Russia. The Palestinians refused to take part in the Moscow talks. A Palestinian delegation had come all the way to Moscow, but never entered the negotiating room. The Jordanian-Palestinian delegation's nameplate was abruptly changed to reveal the Palestinian decision not to attend.
We believe that the Palestinians are making a mistake by not taking advantage of this opportunity. I still hope that they will choose to come before this conference is over, because let me say one more time, I think it represents a significant opportunity for them.
The Palestinians insist they will not join unless Palestinians who live outside the Israeli-occupied territories are allowed to take part.
It's impossible for us to participate effectively or to represent the concerns and interests of the whole Palestinian people.
Without the presence of diaspora Palestinians, this conference cannot reach any reasonable solutions to the problems of the region.
The U.S. and Russia now say they're ready to change the rules to accommodate the Palestinian demands, but only for some parts of the negotiations on regional issues such as refugees and economic development. The regional talks are the third phase of a peace process that began with last fall's Madrid Peace Conference and continued with face-to-face talks in Washington. Syria had announced earlier it would not attend the Moscow regional talks until direct negotiations with Israel produce concrete results. Lebanon, occupied by Syrian troops, followed Syria's lead and stayed away. U.S. Secretary of State James Baker pointed out what's at stake if the absence of some Arabs causes the talks to break down.
There are pressing human problems, poverty, refugees, disease, and above all, the danger of war that need to be addressed. It would be tragic and irresponsible to put these problems of real and profound human need on hold while we're waiting for peace to come.
The Palestinians' absence does not diminish the historic importance of those who are attending. Sitting around a table with Israel for the first time ever are Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and all the other Persian Gulf Arabs. Also the North African Arabs, except Libya. China, a key Middle East weapons supplier, is here, along with Japan and 2 major European economic groups.
U.S. officials hope the momentum of everyone else taking part in the regional talks will eventually bring Syria and the Palestinians back. But for the moment, their absence makes this part of the Middle East peace process unlikely to go anywhere fast. Ralph Begleiter, CNN, at the Middle East Peace Talks in Moscow.
Police in South Africa arrested militants in dawn raids today, but this time the militants were white. Right-wing leader Eugene Terreblanche and 9 other members of the Afrikaner resistance movement were charged with public violence and released on bail. Jeremy Thompson has more on what the government called non-political arrests.
The arrests are a major blow to South Africa's white extremists, the police rounding up the entire leadership corps of the AWB, the Afrikaner resistance movement, which have been fighting against the government's democratic reforms. The charges arise out of violent clashes last August, when the AWB tried to prevent State President F.W. de Klerk from addressing a meeting in the Afrikaner stronghold of Ventersdorp. 3 AWB members died in an exchange of gunfire. The AWB claimed the police fired first. Among those arrested today were the movement's colorful leader, Eugene Terreblanche, and its Secretary General, Piet Rudolph. Both men have been at the forefront of the sometimes violent struggle for a white Boer homeland within a changing South Africa. In recent weeks, at least a dozen other AWB commandos have been arrested following a series of bomb attacks on public buildings and multiracial schools. The arrest of Terreblanche and his inner circle 5 months after the Ventersdorp incident suggests a tough new line by Mr. de Klerk's government. It's clear they're now committed to cracking down on any extremist organizations who try to stand in the way of the transition to a non-racial government. Jeremy Thompson, ITN, South Africa.
And when we come back, the international issues and challenges facing President Bush as he prepares to deliver his State of the Union speech. We'll talk with an expert on international affairs.
Larry Bird was born to be a champion. He was instilled with a competitive fire and passion that would never die.
One way or another, Bird kills you. Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ line.
Larry Joe Bird was destined for glory in the game he loved. Get bird watching at its best in this amazing video. Larry Bird, a basketball legend. It's free with your paid subscription to Sports Illustrated, the best way to capture all the drama of sports every week.
There's only one place I'd rather be, French Lick.
Through rare footage, you'll follow the victory trail from the cornfields and basketball courts of Indiana to the hallowed halls of the Boston Garden, where the talented young Hoosier resurrects a fallen dynasty. Call this toll-free number now and be there when the championships are won. Share the glory, live the moments with the man who touched all who saw him play.
Larry Bird never quits. He has eyes all around his head.
We can always give it to Larry. He needs to step back and shoot a 3.
Bird, 4-3. Yes!
Exclusive footage captures the hard-fought and emotional duels with longtime rival Magic Johnson.
This game is Larry Bird. I mean, he's doing everything.
This official NBA video is a thrilling 60 minutes that you'll enjoy again and again, free from Sports Illustrated. Get your free video and a full year of Sports Illustrated. 54 issues, including the swimsuit issue, for only $1.29 an issue. Save over 55% off the cover price, and you may use your credit card. Follow all your favorites and all the excitement in Sports Illustrated. Call now to subscribe or renew and get this memorable video free. For quicker delivery, use your credit card. Don't miss this heartwarming tale of a boy who lived his dreams, the dreams of a champion. It's the story of a legend. The legend lives in Sports Illustrated. Call now.
This evening, President Bush delivers his State of the Union address. The focus in the United States, of course, is largely on his economic recipe for an ailing economy. But this traditionally is a speech that also features flourishes and initiatives on the global front. What of the New World Order? Well, joining us now from New York to ponder that and related questions, Peter Tarnoff, President of the Council on Foreign Relations. Thanks for coming in. Well, the world will be, of course, listening along with the United States, and in addition to the economic questions, there is this whole area of global affairs. What sort of initiative, if any, do you anticipate this evening from President Bush?
I don't think there will be very much initiative in foreign policy, but nonetheless the president is going to have to refer to his leadership over the last 3 years, the victories in the Gulf War and in the Cold War, and probably make an appeal that he can use the same kind of energy and initiative to face the domestic agenda without compromising our international interests. But I wouldn't anticipate anything very broad in foreign affairs.
Now, there has been some suggestion that the president will use this speech tonight to make some further arms control initiatives, or at least announcements on further demobilization of some of the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Your anticipations there?
Yes, I think that as a result of conversations with the officials of the Russian government, the president will be in a position to announce further cuts in addition to the ones that have already been revealed in the past months. And I think he will have to go somewhat further in setting out a plan for reducing defense cuts. The administration had been talking about a 25% cut over the next 5 years. I would suspect that the figures will go up 5 to 10 points, talking about a third reduction in the defense budget over the next 5 years.
But word from the administration is that these will not be sweeping, bold arms initiatives, no sort of unilateral disarmament, but rather more of a step-by-step approach, also to match what is happening in Russia and the other republics.
Yes, although I think during the course of the political campaign, the opposition, both from Republicans on the right and from the eventual Democratic candidate, will focus on the specific big-ticket items that the president will probably want to leave in. The Strategic Defense Initiative, for example, has been a subject of a good deal of criticism, and if there are other major programs that are left in, they too will be under criticism in the course of the coming months.
Mr. Tarnoff, what about the New World Order that was so much heralded in speeches past? Do you anticipate a great deal on that? That sort of has worked against President Bush because many of his critics say it's a phrase without meaning.
Yes, I'm afraid so. I think that despite the enormous sense of triumph and anticipation just a year ago, it has turned out to be much more complicated to secure the peace than it was to win the war. And as a result, with the president's own popularity declining, with the nation looking to the president to take increased leadership on domestic agenda, I don't think that notions of a new world order will be talked about at all tonight.
Now, in this speech this evening, some will be watching for something else, and that is a subject you wrote about in the Christian Science Monitor earlier this week. You spoke about national security, the term through which all of U.S. foreign policy really has been determined for more than 4 decades now. And you take aim at that term. How do you see that perhaps translating into some kind of turning point here?
Well, it would seem to me that the president has got to integrate to an unprecedented degree his attention to foreign policy, to domestic needs. He will no longer be able to make a case that actions abroad are in U.S. foreign policy interests unless he can relate those to concerns about the economy, about the social agenda in this country. And therefore, I believe that it is necessary for the president conceptually and his staff to reflect a much more integrated approach and not to separate foreign policy and domestic policy, which has been the way governments have been run in this country for the last 45 years, not just under the Bush administration.
A little bit more inward-looking, perhaps. Peter Tarnoff, thank you very much for joining us from New York.
Ahead on the International Hour, an update as the hard-working Discovery astronauts circle the globe. And cosmonauts threaten to stop work. We'll tell you about the chances for a strike in space. And we'll also tell you how merchants from Eastern Europe are trying to turn a stereotype on its head at an international food fair.
There's something special about driving a Daihatsu from Japan. Whether it's the reliability, high mileage, and comfort of our affordable Daihatsu Charades, or the versatile performance of our rocking wide-track 4x4 with the widest track in its class, you'll feel like the whole town is going to light up and really take notice. It's how we make them. Daihatsu.
Flu epidemic declared. Entire U.S. affected. Fever, congestion, body aches. What will you do? Get serious medicine. Doctors recommend Theraflu. Theraflu is hot liquid medicine. Strong therapy for flu symptoms. Hot liquid therapy that works fast. What will you do when you get the flu? Doctors recommend Theraflu. Strong therapy for flu symptoms.
You really think naphtha can be replaced with a non-flammable solvent?
In 1929, she was the only woman and the only PhD chemist in the physics lab. But over the years, she was responsible for 29 different patents.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Stacer.
Dr. Stacer created a new career path for women and for her company. The same company that leads the nation in patents granted to women over the last decade. We think Dr. Stacer would be pleased.
Dow lets you do great things.
Wednesday night on TBS, perennial contenders collide. It's Milwaukee's muscle against the airborne arsenal of Atlanta. The Hearts and the Bucks, live at 8:35 Eastern Wednesday night on TBS.
Eastern Europe is making a renewed appeal to the palates of the West. CNN's Doug James reports the tasty enticements were displayed on buffets at the annual Berlin Food Fair.
Beer from Czechoslovakia, ham from Poland, sausage from Slovenia, champagne from the Crimea. With the transformation from communism to private enterprise, the former East Bloc is trying to cast off its image as a producer of poorly packaged, low-quality goods and make inroads in the lucrative Western marketplace.
Wir müssen in erster Linie hier neue Kontakte machen.
We are here to make contacts, and we hope they will lead to orders for our firm. It's a long, slow process, but we have to start somewhere.
This year, the Berlin Food Fair attracted exhibitors from more than 60 nations, including a lone fish vendor from Latvia. The Roya Fish Factory in Riga brought 30,000 cans of Baltic sardines and mackerel and went head-to-head in competition with some of the best fish handlers in the world. This woman thought it tasted great, and she clearly wasn't the only one. Within a few days, the exhibitor had recouped her expenses and established valuable contacts for the future.
We are finding there's a lot of interest in our products, not only from people visiting the show, but from large retail buyers as well. That's not only good for our company, but for our entire region.
It takes a little effort to sell an unfamiliar product, but eventually even the most reluctant consumer will give in to a good old American-style sales pitch, a lesson Eastern Europe's new entrepreneurs are quickly learning. One Hungarian exhibitor set up his own lottery. The prize, a 6-foot-long sausage. And this Czechoslovakian brewery, keenly aware of the publicity to be gained from the presence of a Western television network, stayed open long after other exhibitors had gone home. But the customers stayed too. They liked the beer. And that has to be a good sign for the future. The success here greatly encouraged these workers, who plan to buy their state-owned Bratislav brewery when it's privatized later this year. Doug James, CNN, Berlin.
You can make more money during a recession when you have the right information. Every week, the Kiplinger-Washington letter is like financial radar. It helps you cut through the thick fog of economic uncertainty. It takes you behind the headlines and shows you how to make money. Kiplinger answers your tough questions. What should you do now about your job, your business, taxes, your investments? Every week, Kiplinger shows you how to safely move ahead in profit. The next 4 issues can make or save you hundreds of dollars, and they're yours free. And when you call today, you'll also receive free this 48-page investment guide. Discover how you can cash in on a nearly perfect investment vehicle, plus so much more. Call now for 4 free issues. Kiplinger will bill you for $48, a $15 savings off the regular rate. If you're not satisfied, return the bill marked canceled and owe nothing. Call 1-800-776-6300. That's 1-800-776-6300.
International Hour continues, followed by Early Prime after this local commercial break. Next on CNN.
We're at Robert's Dairy to study the making of their low-fat yogurt. After primping themselves for a formal evening out, the yogurt cows sashay past the paparazzi into the milking complex. Ah, yesterday, Paco Bell's Canyon in D. Today, the Blue Danube Waltz, the particular favorite of the blueberry cow. One thing is clear, Robert's yogurt cows are the product of good breeding and active culture.
Roberts, how do you make it taste so good?
So, learned anything today?
Carl Vogel is a plumber.
I don't know.
The town of Carrollton, Georgia.
We learned about the wall coming down.
A town where TCI recently introduced cable television to the high school.
Dad?
At first, Carl didn't understand what cable television had to do with education.
I think maybe I might want to go to college.
But if you ask him today,
You think that'll be okay?
yeah, he'd say it's a change for the better.
I think maybe that would be okay.
This is CNN.
Checking our top stories for you, Russian President Boris Yeltsin resurfaced on a Black Sea warship today. That's a day after his sudden disappearance from the Kremlin. Mr. Yeltsin's spokesman says he met with military leaders at a Black Sea port on the security of nuclear weapons. He's expected to outline his new nuclear proposals in a taped address on Russian television later. Secretary of State James Baker is trying to work out a way for Palestinians to join the latest round of Middle East peace talks. The Palestinians decided to boycott when some of their negotiators were barred from the table. The South African government is sending a message to white extremists with the roundup of 10 right-wing militants. The arrests stem from a clash between police and supporters of a right-wing party last year that left 3 people dead.
Time now for a look at the day's financial news, and we go to Beverly Schuch live at the New York Stock Exchange. Beverly?
Thanks, Frank. Here on Wall Street, the blue chips are poised to close at an all-time high. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up a solid 21 points. It had been up more than 30 points earlier. At 32.62, that is just 2 points shy of the record. Volume is heavy, 197 million shares traded so far. And on the broader and secondary markets, all of the 4 key indexes are also higher. Most of the Dow's gains today come from a few stocks with surprisingly strong earnings reports. Disney is one of the Dow's biggest winners. It is up 5 3/4 points after reporting quarterly earnings increased 22%. Disney is also boosting its dividend 20%. Dow stock Procter & Gamble is up 5 3/8 points on the heels of its quarterly earnings report, and Volvo is down 2 1/8. The Swedish government rejecting the terms of Volvo's proposed merger with drug maker Procordia, but the government says it is willing to negotiate. Wall Street's early gains boosted share prices in London today. The Financial Times 100 share index rose 12 points to close at 25.52, despite a gloomy report on the outlook for the British economy. And in Tokyo, the Nikkei average rebounded from recent losses to gain almost 2%. It rose nearly 400 points. And in consumer news, American consumers are apparently not convinced that a recovery is on the horizon. The Conference Board's Index of Consumer Confidence fell for the 7th straight month in January. Some economists had been expecting confidence to rise. Interest rates are falling on that report. The yield on the Treasury's 30-year bond now stands at 7.66%. And the dollar is mixed. It is down 0.5 cent against the German mark, down 0.25 cent against the British pound, but up more than a yen against the Japanese currency. And one last check of the market shows that with less than a half an hour left in the trading day, the Dow is up 24 points. Don't forget to join us tonight for Moneyline with Lou Dobbs. That's at 7 and 11:30 Eastern. We'll be back in an hour with another update. I'm Beverly Schuch, live at the New York Stock Exchange.
Thanks, Beverly. The discontent felt throughout Russia and the rest of the former Soviet Union has reached stratospheric levels, an all-time high, you could say, in space. Cosmonauts and their mission-controlled colleagues are threatening to strike unless they get a pay raise. At today's operative exchange rate, their pay is equivalent to about $6 a month. Despite the threat, a cargo ship docked with the Mir orbiting space station Monday. The cosmonauts have been on the Mir since October.
Marcia the elephant, found mistreated at a Russian zoo, died today. We reported to you yesterday how the 32-year-old pachyderm was found frostbitten and starving at a city zoo in Volgograd. She reportedly had much of her food stolen by hungry zookeepers, certainly a sign of hard times in the former Russian Republic. The elephant, too weak to stand, was moved to the Moscow circus grounds for special treatment. Officials said that she had shown signs of improvement, but then died suddenly.
This stock market update is brought to you by Mitsubishi Montero, a luxury car with the luxury of four-wheel drive.
The same bold engineering that made the Mitsubishi Diamante such a successful luxury performance sedan has now taken automotive luxury
in an entirely different direction. Introducing the all-new Mitsubishi Montero, a luxury automobile whose luxuries include state-of-the-art four-wheel drive. The 1992 Montero by Mitsubishi. The word is getting around.
More valuable than most, this umbrella. Those who carry the Travelers for business insurance carry a 127-year tradition of excellence, upheld by 35,000 employees dedicated to customer satisfaction. Chosen by 50% of the Fortune 500. Open in case you want quality and service the Traveler's way. You're better off under the umbrella.
At the Ashby Inn, the secret of our chicken rice recipe is in the rich taste of our chicken stock.
Country Inn rice dishes made with hearty country ingredients and Uncle Ben's rice. Taste the country in Uncle Ben's Country Inn. Rice dishes inspired by the finest inns.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low fat.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
Tonight, a tax cut for the middle class, universal health care. What will President Bush offer the American public? And how will it affect his re-election? The State of the Union address tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
In Japan, where you go to school can determine your entire future. And in Kyoto, there's even a school for fledgling gang members. CNN's Taylor Henry reports on the education provided for those who want to make a career in Japan's Yakuza underworld.
A boarding school in Kyoto, Japan. Students rising after a night's sleep, rolling up their futon mattresses, preparing for the daily grind. These aren't just ordinary students, and this is no ordinary school. It is run by the Aizu Kotetsugumi, one of Japan's biggest Yakuza crime families. These students are gangsters, the cream of the crop among young recruits from various Yakuza groups around Kyoto, sent here to hone their professional skills and move up the ranks.
I joined out of an admiration for the underworld.
Yakuza gangs throughout Japan recruit heavily among juvenile outcasts. Many experience their own run-ins with police prior to joining the Yakuza. Gangs offer these youths an organization they can join for life. In a culture where belonging to almost any group is better than being on your own, that's important. They are attracted to the glamorous lifestyle of Japan's underworld bosses, a lifestyle in which gang members wear full-body tattoos and sever portions of their fingers to show remorse for wrongs committed against the group. But first, these hopefuls must pass the test of rigorous training, performing menial tasks. 70% Yakuza leaders say won't make it and will drop out. Gang leaders say living together gives the trainees a sense of brotherhood. The Spartan lifestyle, they say, instills discipline and teaches the code of values the Yakuza hold dearest, obedience and loyalty to the Oyabun, or godfather.
We teach young followers about many things, like sense of duty and humanity, and manners.
In a neighborhood where ordinary school children pass by every day, the Yakuza school functions without fear of police or citizens. And in Japan, so do the Yakuza. Unlike the American mafia or other crime families, Japan's Yakuza gangs have legal recognition. Joining or belonging to the Yakuza is not in and of itself a crime in Japan, although police say individual members are deeply involved in criminal activity. Police made 54,000 arrests of Yakuza gangsters in 1990 alone. These were mostly lower echelon gangsters. Those left to do the dirty work, police say these organizations thrive on: illegal gambling, prostitution, drug trafficking, blackmail, extortion.
The organizations I know of usually forbid the higher level people to deal in prostitution and drugs.
Money from the bottom is pumped up to the top, so the leaders don't have to commit a crime to live like a king.
Gang emblems adorn Yakuza office buildings throughout Japan like a company logo. Members flaunt the emblem on their lapel pins and even carry business cards associating them with Yakuza groups. Many Japanese seek out these gangsters for services, like collecting debts, or persuading tenants or owners to vacate property wanted for development. In a culture that runs more on consensus than confrontation, Yakuza mediators are heavily involved in out-of-court settlements to traffic accidents. Nor do these up-and-comers hide their enrollment as students of Yakuza tradition. That tradition goes back more than 300 years. Popular legend has it the early outlaws, while gamblers and bandits, were above all defenders of the common man, Japan's own Robin Hoods. The Yakuza still claim to live by that creed.
To stand by the weak, to fight against the powerful, to feed people in starvation, and to put clothes on people frozen with cold.
Inspired by those romanticized ideals, the Yakuza do make their own kind of social contribution. Yakuza security patrols keep order in some of Japan's hottest entertainment districts, such as Tokyo's famous Ginza, patrolled by this branch of the Sumiyoshi Kai. In reality, they are guarding their own turf against competing gangs as much as protecting patrons.
We try to patrol in Ginza because the territory here, we have the best territory in Japan.
When gang turf wars break out, shootings often result. Ignoring Japan's ban on privately owned guns, the Yakuza are known to have large caches of illegal weapons. They are blamed for more than half the murders committed in Japan each year.
In case family have trouble, we get together to fight, yes.
But even when violence occurs, the warring factions act under a strict code of allegiance to their Yakuza commanders. They seldom harm innocent citizens. And by taking in wayward youths and giving them training and discipline, the Yakuza take credit for keeping street crime under control, giving Japan one of the lowest rates of violent crime anywhere in the world. Taylor Henry, CNN, Tokyo.
That's it for this portion of the International Hour. Thanks for watching. I'm Donna Kelley at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
And I'm Frank Sesno in Washington. Here's Ralph Wenge with what's ahead on CNN's World Report segment. Ralph.
Donna and Frank, thank you very much. Europeans are applauding the opportunities to trade and travel more freely within the continent, but those changes also make it easier for immigrants to move to Europe's wealthier countries. And that's prompted anger and resentment. We'll explore the problem with 3 European journalists.
Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling?
Hello, Mom. It's Jonathan. I'm getting married.
People who are saving money with the AT&T Reach Out World Plan. They're calling friends and family in over 50 countries and areas, talking longer and saving an average of 20%. Even if you spend only $12 a month on international calls, sign up and start saving. Whether you call across the Atlantic, the Pacific, to Canada, or to Mexico.
Did you see the phone bill?
Yeah. Hola, tía Dora.
AT&T makes it easy to save on the calls you already make. You'll even get a 5% discount on AT&T state-to-state calls made from your home. Call 1-800-445-3231 and sign up now. Because with this plan, when a loved one is far away, you can go ahead and call.
I miss her, too. We could call her in Tokyo, huh? Do you want to call Grandma?
And the longer you talk, the more you'll save. No need to wait for the right time to call either. You have over 120 hours a week to save. The AT&T Reach Out World Plan. With these savings and all the quality and service you expect from AT&T, it's our best value in international calling.
I'll call you. We'll call you.
So before you make your next international call 1-800-445-3231 and start saving an average of 20%. All for only $3 a month. Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling? Soon it may be you. Sign up now for the AT&T Reach Out World Plan. Call 1-800-445-3231.
Welcome to CNN World Report, where we bring you news as reported by broadcasters around the globe from their perspective. I'm Ralph Wenge. A poster hanging in a French restaurant urges the eviction of all immigrants from the country. A Sri Lankan refugee is kicked to death in East London. 2 North Africans are stabbed by a group of Italian skinheads.
They call it nationalism, but it usually manifests itself as raw hatred against immigrants. Europe, 1992. Border controls and trade barriers are to be abolished. But can there be a unified Europe with such divisive hatred? The European community warned in December that manifestations of racism and xenophobia are steadily growing in Europe. Analysts say economic problems have sparked this anger toward immigrants. But leaders of far-right groups say their feelings run much deeper.
Last month, an international conference urged the European community to create permanent laws guaranteeing racial equality for all. Just how will the Europe of tomorrow cope with its immigrants who handle those who say they don't even belong? Now, joining us now to discuss this are 3 European journalists. Francois-Dumont is with Francis Epertois, Heinz Pianca of Deutsche Welle in Germany, and Nick Guthry of the BBC. Jean-Francois, we hear all these things. We see the results of the racism going on. Where is it coming from? Where are the roots?
Well, I think you were mentioning immigration, especially in my country. You were right to mention it's a European problem, not only a French problem. Right. And for a European problem, we need a European solution to this. I think we have to understand the problem as we see it from my country. We only see 2 solutions, either to integrate people or to drive them back. You've got to get everybody in the country. If you want to live in the country, you have to integrate, and especially integrate economically also. We had, not only in the last 20 years, but much before, many immigrants coming to our country and enjoyed it. Look at the Italians in the latter part of the 19th century when we got the Duchy of Nice. These Italians become French, and nobody asked ever Nice to become Italian again. So we got Italians that have been bringing many good things to my country. The Spaniards did the same. The Portuguese also. We get 800,000 Portuguese people living around Paris, and they are French people.
But Heinz, isn't a lot of this being born from the economic problems?
With respect to Germany, certainly yes, because take, for instance, the problems that arose during unification of Germany, when housing problems were mounting, when many people lost their jobs in the course of unification, especially in East Germany. And of course, in that part of the country where formerly there was only an official kind of friendship with other countries, with foreign countries, and where the people never profited from friendship. So once they were exposed to foreign cultures, to other nations, to people from other nations, and they couldn't have understanding why, for instance, people came to Germany and got money while they were waiting for political asylum, while they, for instance, lost their jobs and their houses.
Nick, is this a relatively new phenomenon in Britain?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think we've had immigration for centuries, and I don't think that...
But have the people reacted to it in the same way?
Up to a point, yes. I mean, if you go back to the 20s and the 30s, there was considerable immigrant violence, particularly in South London, East London, places like that. So I don't think that it's a new phenomenon as such. What I think is terribly important, though, is for it not to be taken out of context, and that the headline writers and the pictures that tell the stories don't necessarily tell you what is really going on. And I think one has to be awfully careful that you don't overblow, if you like, you know, the problems. And in particular, a lot of the press has been going on and on recently about the neo-Nazis and things like that in Germany. But when you really look at this particular movement, you have to say that it is actually very, very small indeed. And you talked in your introduction about a violence, racial violence in the East End very recently. I mean, please don't allow yourselves to blow it out of proportion.
Well, let me go back here to Heinz a second. I think a lot of this had its birth in Germany over the past couple of years. A resurgence of Nazism there, and there was a lot of concern. Was this all being played up too much by the media there, or was there a legitimate reason for concern?
I think really that on the one side there is a legitimate reason for concern, but one should not exaggerate this problem of neo-Nazism. For the politicians, I think, and for the whole media, it's necessary to have a close eye on the problem of neo-Nazism, but it's much more important to fight xenophobia. And I think on the long run, that's even a problem that has to be tackled much more.
Joe, Francois, it seems that most of these people, and maybe this isn't unusual, but most of them who are involved in this neo-Nazism, or whatever you want to call it, are very young.
Well, I've been a long time myself in Germany. I was in Leipzig. I wanted to witness these so-called Nazis. There were 4 people coming with a car, and just behind was the car of the chief of the police. And maybe you know that the chief of the Stasi had an assistant who was preparing coups with Nazis. So there is exactly what my colleagues mentioned. There might be a very small problem there, but from this small problem, we mustn't see another problem. I think xenophobia is, in fact, the biggest problem, and especially when economic conditions are getting worse.
All right, we're going to continue this discussion, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Your attention, please. The 631 will be delayed.
Get some coffee?
No. This gives me a chance to call my broker.
Now?
Sure.
My broker's never in this early.
You have to keep to his schedule?
Trading decisions happen round the clock. That's why so many active investors choose Fidelity Brokerage Services. Fidelity has experienced brokers available 24 hours a day to place your trades. Plus, you'll save as much as 76% on stock and option commissions. Call this number now for your free Fidelity Brokerage Fact Kit.
That's right. 500 shares at the market price at the open. Great. A couple more things I want to cover.
And find out about Fidelity's fast on-time performance nationwide with significant savings. For your free Fact Kit, call Fidelity Brokerage Services at 1-800-624-4900, a Fidelity Investments company.
Because sometimes the day ends and the pain doesn't, we've created Tylenol PM. It's more than relief. It's relief for those times when you can't sleep. Tylenol PM has extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever to help stop your nighttime aches and pains, plus a gentle ingredient to help you sleep. So you can wake up refreshed in the morning. From the name you trust comes Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
Continue our discussion now. Joel, Francois, I want to go one step further with what we were discussing, and I was talking about the fact that so many of the young are involved in this activity. Are you concerned, all of you concerned, about the new generation? What is happening, how they are going to grow up, and what kind of politicians they might make, what kind of teachers they might make?
Yes, but if we take the example of Arabic young people living in France, we have, I would say, 2 separate kind of people. You have the sons of the hierarchies who decided to work with the French. They were the non-commissioned officers of the French during the war in Algeria. And then they came back to France. And the fathers and the mothers, they behaved as French people. They had no problem. There are some difficult problems to settle in the country, but they were solved. But their children today, they don't feel either French or Algerian. Then on the other side, you got the Algerian, the first generation that we needed for to fill jobs when the economic situation was good, we had money and we needed jobs. They came and they worked. But the second generation, they don't feel French in France. And when they go back to Algeria, most of the time they don't speak Algerian, they don't speak Arabic. They don't feel Arabic either.
Heinz, break it down for us, if you will, where the immigrants are really coming from.
Let me just add to what Jean-François said. I think I'm not concerned about the young generation in our countries, but I'm concerned about the politicians, because the politicians have to take care that the young generation will get jobs, that they will get an education. And education and jobs, this together can make a big difference in having a kind of attitude towards other cultures.
I don't want to read your mind, but are you saying the politicians are not doing their jobs?
Not enough. There are some, of course, who go in the right direction. There are some who bring up into public discussion the idea of a multicultural society, while I think we have it already. We have it already in major European cities. If, for instance, if I go to Paris or to London, I see a multicultural city in London and in Paris with an Arabic accent in Paris and with an accent from India and Pakistan in London, and we'll have the same in Berlin, or we have it already, with a certain influx of people who have come from Eastern Europe.
Nick, we're hearing stories about some of these immigrants, maybe a whole lot of immigrants, moving into some of the changing countries of Eastern Europe. They've got plenty of problems right now. Now, with the addition of immigrants, can they handle this problem?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it was quite interesting. Just before the Maastricht conference in London, I was talking to the German ambassador, who was saying that if there was a failure at Maastricht, he believed that it would be a disaster because we would see a rise of nationalism. He also made, I thought, a fascinating point, which was that immigration as such was not even on the agenda of Maastricht. It was alluded to, but not really addressed. Now, you are beginning to see all governments looking at tightening, if you like, immigration controls, tightening passport controls.
What we're talking about here is changing laws, right?
That's right.
Is that going to work, though? Do laws work in something like
well,
this?
they certainly will, I think, yes. What I think people haven't yet taken on board is the enormity of this problem. You talked about the Eastern European countries, and as Jean-Francois was saying, it is all to do with economics. These people are now beginning to move. It is a trickle, but it will become, I think, a flood. You talked earlier about sort of perhaps 30 million, on the move across from the East Europe into the West to find new jobs, to find a place to live, a place to bring up their own children. And I think what you're saying is, can we actually cope with that in Europe? And I think the answer is yes, we can.
But what about the social ills that are going to follow all of this? They may get in, they may get jobs, they may start to raise their families, but you're going to have substantial numbers of people who are going to object and object vehemently and sometimes violently. Jean-Francois?
I think we only have two solutions. There might be two extremes. It's either to integrate these people and to pay for it, and to invest for it. And the second solution is to drive them back.
All right,
which is not a possibility at all.
No, if they don't wish to integrate.
All right. We have run out of time. Francois-Dumont, Heinz Pianca, and Nick Guthry, thank you, gentlemen, very much for being with us. That's it for the CNN World Report. On tomorrow's program, we'll be joined by 3 Latin American journalists. We'll discuss some of the recent changes in that region. I'm Ralph Wenge. Lou Waters now has a look at what's ahead in the next hour. Lou?
Up next, Ralph, for our viewers in the United States, Hollywood tries to recapture the good old days when people came, not left town, to shoot movies. And the battle lines are being drawn in Auburn, Alabama, where the funding of a new student group for homosexuals. Washington hails its conquering heroes, the Super Bowl champion Redskins, make a triumphant return. Join Cheryl Atkinson and me for Early Prime next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime, followed by Inside Politics 92, after a word from your local cable systems here on CNN.
Answer for you. It's National Geographic World Magazine, published especially for kids by the National Geographic Society.